It's not a good start to the first episode of the Dan Mitchell Show, as we ultimately end up seeing the Fourth and Forever logo grace your screens. Richie, we understand it's sick, all right? But that's why I asked you to be the producer of this episode as we dive into these damn topics. Jesse, how you doing, man? Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I was going to say the intro was sick the first time.
It
I
was.
understand why you played it again.
Yeah. No, man, honestly, like I was asking him, I was like, listen, I need one for my show. Although it's the soft launch, folks, like obviously, but we still have plenty of topics that we are going to go over today. As many of you know, the NFL free agency new league year is right around the corner. I have my good friend Jesse here with me, who is a diehard 49ers fan, and they just so happen to be doing a lot of moves. Is a Brock Purdy contract going to be in the future? I follow him on X, so I know he's probably not the biggest proponent for this. And then also what the hell the Cincinnati Bengals are doing. Welcome to the first episode of the Dan Mitchell Show. And I'll tell you what, I did tease it already, but how's life as a 49ers fan, man? Because
Man,
I've been scrolling through quite a bit and I've been seeing a lot of changes so far. What's going on?
it's crazy, Dan, because I think that 49er fans are in a bit of a frenzy over what's been happening. They're not necessarily happy because it's split. Like right now, you do have a portion of this fan base that is looking at it saying, okay, easy schedule, bunch of injuries last year. Why are we not still trying to win a Super Bowl? This doesn't seem like a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl. And my argument has been since last offseason that the team wasn't going to win a Super Bowl as currently constructed. You had a bunch of high paid players that are getting older. It's time to move on from these contracts. I then proposed that again at the time of the trade deadline during the season. People didn't want to hear it, but now this is where we are at. The 49ers, in my opinion, are making the right moves. And Dan, it doesn't have to be a death sentence. We saw teams like Denver, the Chargers, your Buffalo Bills, the Washington
Yeah.
Commanders trim the fat, so to speak, and still made the playoffs because of the way that things lined up. So if the 49ers can crush the draft, get some good little pieces in free agency, not long-term deals, but just get some good pieces, they can still make the playoffs as long as they have the coach that people think they have and the quarterback that people think they have.
Now, Samuel was not much of a surprise, like I could imagine for you, right? It seemed
No.
like that he was trying to get his way out, even dating back to last offseason. But now we're hearing about teams are interested in Brandon Ayuk. Is Shanahan in this front office like really trying to go that extra mile? Like, could you see a world where Ayuk is gone too? Like we saw Hargrave is out, a lot of pending free agents. Have you guys stopped from some of the surprises, or do you still think some are right around the corner? Because it's been
No,
crazy.
I definitely could see a scenario where Brandon Ayuk is traded. I don't think it's likely, but you're talking about an owner that has basically come out through the media and said he regrets the Ayuk deal. He regretted the Deebo
Yeah.
Samuel deal. He regretted the way that the Bosa deal played out and all those
Yeah.
other things. So when you have an owner that regretted it and then you have a big chunk of money owed to one of those players he regrets signing on April 1st of this year, he's going to have to cut another check of around $17 million to him. I do think that all possibilities are there. Now, they're not going to just give him away. He's injured, so that complicates things. So I don't know what to expect with Ayuk. I do know that they are going to listen. And if, let's say, the Patriots come through with an offer they can't refuse, then they'll easily let him go.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because, like I said, like I saw that Deebo was on his way out, and so I feel like a lot of Niners fans are kind of like just whatever, like they're trying to brush it off their shoulder, like, oh, okay, whatever. He completely fell off of a cliff. I've seen that meme of him in his gut right in the Eagles jersey all over the
Yeah,
internet
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. So, do you think his best days are behind him? And was like that something that hurt you, or were you completely fine with him and just going in the
Yeah,
first?
I think really for me, when they signed Deebo Samuel, he was coming off of a historic year in 2021.
Uh huh.
Anybody, anybody that was watching closely knew that that was going to be the best year of his career. I mean, it was just impossible to duplicate it. It was so good. So you knew that you were already paying for a future Debo that wasn't going to be as good as that year. But what he had produced and with some of the injuries, I mean, it was less than what was anticipated. And unfortunately, it was just time to move on. Deebo Samuel has always had these weight issues. He had them coming into the league. It was something that his coaches in college talked about. Wes Welker, who was the wide receiver coach when he was drafted, used to have to run with him like 2 miles a day after practice to keep him in shape. So
Oh
there's
shit.
always this issue with his weight. And he just balloons up in the offseason or would balloon up when he got injured. He came into the last season in phenomenal shape. He was looking good. Then he had a bit of an injury. He got a pneumonia, and the pounds kept coming back. And so by the end of the season, he had just put on a bunch of weight that he didn't start the season with. So I don't know. I don't it's hard for me to say a player is washed when they're 29 years old. I also look at players like Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and say, I don't want to say they're washed. They were coming off of a major injury. They were in a new system. I don't know for sure, but I'm okay finding out that he's not washed and watching it happen on another team than to find out he is washed and to have it happen on the 49ers.
Yeah. No, man, I totally understand that. And you know what? With all of these moves that they have been making, I totally agree with you, right? Like have to shed out these bad old contracts and try and follow the same footsteps as the likes of the Bills, as the Broncos, still be competitive, hopefully, in the NFC West, especially since all signs are pointing that the Seattle Seahawks are planning on just throwing away this season in 2025 with a lot of their moves. But I think a lot of people are assuming that what San Francisco is doing is trying to find a way to give Brock Purdy his contract. Before all of these moves, we heard that negotiations had already started. And I know that you have been a pretty big proponent of that. You were ideally hoping that he does not sign a world breaking contract, a record setting contract. And it's not even so much about what you would like to see, but what do you think the 49ers are going to do about this Brock Purdy situation? What is a contract going to look like for this guy? And how does it make you feel?
Man, if you would have asked me this a month ago, I would have said, yeah, he's going to get one of the bigger deals, probably 55, $60 million, 5 years. I mean, what we've seen over the last couple of years happen with all these quarterbacks. But this offseason is not last offseason, apparently. The 49ers are the timing of all of these rumors coming out from ownership not being happy about these deals and tightening up the pockets and picking and choosing a little bit more wisely who they're going to give their money to. I feel like is a direct shot at maybe the agent of Brock Purdy and saying, we're not going to do what you think we're going to do. And then Jason Lockenfora came out and said that the initial offer is $45 million. Well, if the initial offer is $45 million, there's no way the 49ers are going up 25% from that. That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So I, you know as well as I do, AAV is one thing. How is the contract structured? That is really the important thing. I don't really
Yeah.
care what the AAV is. Is there going to be an out after 2 years? That's
Yeah.
customary with the 49ers. That's what they normally do. I would expect that to be in there. And I would expect them to, make it a reasonable amount early on to where they can move on from him if they need to, while also giving him more money than he's ever seen in his life. So I do think ultimately a deal will get done. I don't think it's going to come across the ticker and be a record setting contract, but I think it's
Yeah.
one that ultimately is going to pay him well and then give the 49ers an opportunity to back out of it in a couple years if they're not happy with him.
So we laugh at that Trevor Lawrence contract, but like when you look at the specifics, like
Structured phenomenally.
yeah, exactly. Like that would be something I could see you guys doing. And it's funny because like obviously I do watch your content. Massive fan. I highly recommend that everybody
Thanks,
that
man.
tunes in to the NFC West Roundtable and also to his channel to tune on in. But like I feel like you have an interesting relationship with Brock Purdy, right? Like one time I did remember on one of my personal live streams, I compared him to Tua and you put your foot down and you're like, absolutely not. I will not allow that. But then I've also heard you kind of had your reservations against the guy. Like, here's my thing when it comes into Brock Purdy. Um, I think like he should be more around of like a Baker Mayfield type deal. Like, say, for example, that I was running like that, like said organization. Because my concern is that yes, it is Mr. Irrelevant, but then you also paired him with the offensive mind of Kyle Shanahan, had a star-studded roster around him at any given game, especially during those Super Bowl appearances. And we haven't seen this guy play with a less than roster. Like, you pay a quarterback the big bucks when he can prove that he can make a carousel of average dudes, like he can elevate that said team by itself. Is there anything that Brock Purdy, like from a 49ers fan, is there anything that he's demonstrated that he could be the elevator and his supporting cast would be irrelevant, or no? So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't I don't think so.
Yeah, dude, right?
I I think the Baker deal is exactly what I've been saying. Obviously, you have to update it a little bit because Baker's deal was a few years ago. Brock Purdy, if you were to give him the Baker deal, it'd be a
Yeah, some
3-year.
more money now, obviously, with the
The
market.
$45 million is spot on, right? 3 years,
Yeah.
45 million per, about 100 million fully guaranteed. Like I would love that deal. I would be totally fine with that deal. And it's funny because when it comes to Brock Purdy, it's almost like anybody out there who has a kid brother, it's like I can pick on my kid brother, but the moment you pick on him, like now we got to fight.
Done.
So
Yeah,
that's what it
totally.
is with Brock Purdy. It's like within the fan base, I'm going to pick on him a little bit, but once Dan Mitchell picks on him and calls him Tua, like the gloves are off, man. Like we're going to have a conversation. I do
It's
draw the line at Tua. I don't think Tua is good at all. So that's
no, no,
that's
no, no,
kind
no.
of
You and I can
where
bond
it's
over
at.
that fact. That's for sure. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, if you are watching. Tony came in with a super chat and he asked me to smack Bob. He does this every single stream. There you go, brother. There
In
you
the
go,
golf
Bob.
attire, even. I love it.
Yeah, man. I've definitely been giving him a break since this regular season. I've given him a vacation from these hands, but we'll see how next season ends up pairing out. Folks, this episode is brought to you by BetUS, the number one sports book on the face of the planet when it comes into everything and anything sports betting. Sure, we have all of the NBA lines, NHL, Major League Baseball, but you could also throw your hat in the ring for some of these NFL specials and futures. Free agency is right around the corner, and you can predict just about every single pending free agent's landing spot right over here on BetUS. They are matching 150% of your first deposit, all the way up to $2,000. So certainly go ahead and check that out by using code YouTube150 to take advantage of one of the best promos in the game. And you said something interesting. You were like, you know what? I can't let Dan Mitchell pick on the San Francisco 49ers, but I do have a topic, and I did want to pick on a specific organization that neither you or I have any skin in the game with. I tried inviting our Cincinnati Bengals representative on here to say his piece. I think he had a conflict, but I got to tell you what, from the outside looking in, Jesse, I have no idea what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing as far as a front office side of things. It appears that they are so obsessed with keeping together T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow, and they are continuously avoiding the real issue with that organization, and that are the significant defensive holes that they need to fix. They have $50 million in overall cap space, but from what I have heard is that their owner, who is actually one of the poorest owners in the NFL, only a $987 million net worth. I know, poor guy, right? But apparently he has shown struggles of being able to commit to a lot of guaranteed money because, like we know with the salary cap, that's what you're allowed to spend. It doesn't mean that the owner wants to shell out that kind of cash. My whole problem with the Cincinnati Bengals is that there must be a mentality that they are under the assumption that if they were to allow T. Higgins to be off of this roster, that they are going to see a massive decline in offensive production. Like they are no longer going to be scoring 35. They are going to be like a perennial 20-point team moving forward, saying that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow wouldn't be able to put up similar numbers, a significant regression. Now you see that Trey Hendrickson, like they are just like, all right, yeah, man, whatever. You can go get traded. Like we're going to put all of our efforts and opportunity into building this damn offense, and we're hopefully just going to figure it out eventually. I think my question to you is, are the priorities of the Cincinnati Bengals completely backwards, or are they making the right decision to focus exclusively on preserving this offensive trio that has been a part of their overall identity and for the past couple of years?
You know what's interesting about this is I really feel like Joe Burrow during Super Bowl week put their backs against the wall. And he
Yeah.
basically said, I need to have Hendrickson and Chase and Higgins, all of them signed, plus he named like 2 other guys. He knows that that's not possible. To me, this is a quarterback that's angling to get out in the future. I wouldn't be shocked if he requests a trade at some point. I thought it might
Burrow?
happen as early as this offseason. Yeah, I think it might happen next offseason. I really could see that happening because you've got an ownership group that you know is not going to pay these guys the way that they should. He's not going to front load contracts and give a bunch of money so that they can do the void year thing and play with the salary cap and maneuver the salary cap the way that they should to keep all these guys. And you already see it with Trey Hendrickson coming out going, listen, I wanted to be here. I tried to make it work. I got to go. Like, this is not working for me. And then you saw Higgins come out and say it's cap that they're trying to keep him long term. It's a dumpster fire. And there's no way that Joe Burrow is going to stick around long term for that. However, when it comes to a roster building philosophy, no. I mean, if you're choosing between Hendrickson and Higgins, trade Higgins.
Yeah.
First of all, Higgins is younger. You're probably going to get as much or more for him. And you do need Hendrickson. You already lost Hubbard, who retired unexpectedly, or at least to me, it was unexpectedly.
He's
They
29.
should be adding players on defense, not getting rid of your best players. So you fired Anarumo, who was your defensive coordinator. You got to do something to make it work. I don't know, man. I don't be surprised if Burrow in the next year requests a trade. I really believe that that's coming. I think it's headed in that direction.
So as long as we have your permission, we are probably going to clip that and put that on X. And,
Yeah, go ahead.
and we are going to say, don't be surprised if Burrow ultimately ends up asking for a trade. So you're saying that he's trying to sabotage the organization from a financial standpoint where they have no choice but to ship him out of Cincinnati.
Basically it's not that he's trying to sabotage them. It's that these players could be afforded if the construction of the contract is done the right way, but you've got to have an owner that's willing to spend money up front so that you can push money back into void years. And that's not the way that the Bengals have done things. And he knows he has an owner that is cheap. And so when he says multiple times to the media, I need this guy signed, I need this guy signed, I need this guy signed, I also need this guy, plus we need to improve this, he knows that owner's not going to do it. So that's his way of saying, listen, I tried. I tried to keep all these guys. Clearly ownership's not into it. I got to go. And so I'm just saying, if these guys if they move on from Higgins, they're not able to get a long-term deal with him and with Hendrickson. I mean, would you be shocked if he asked for a trade after the way that he went on a tour this offseason?
No, not at all. But like, I'd say his personality is like sort of hard to digest, right? Like, it's like sort of hard to read. Like, he never really seems happy during his interviews and stuff. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know about the MVP. I thought I played really good ball, like stuff like that. But it's wild too, because like I think when it came into that Sam Hubbard take, I said, oh, look, he's gone. And now with Trey Hendrickson, he's gonna be gone. A lot of Bengals fans were just saying, oh, yeah, but Sam Hubbard was absolutely trash. He was like regressing. It doesn't matter. Like, it's like whatever. Y'all lost familiarity within the defense, right? Like, you can roll the dice on another free agent, or you could roll the dice on somebody that you could potentially draft this upcoming year. But the draft is always a roll of the dice. God forbid that new edge rusher that you bring in, that, let's be honest with ourselves, I think that they're probably going to wait until like the third or the fourth if they go. Well, now that Hendrickson's off the board, maybe they end up going that direction in the draft this year. But you still need time to let that player develop. Like, you already know the production that Hubbard was going to give you. And now you're just guessing that it's going to improve. But more than likely, it's going to take some time for that guy to be caught up to speed. Secondary is absolutely atrocious. That needs to be addressed. Just go on ahead, right? Bring back Hendrickson, the only bright spot of that defense, and go out, get some secondary help, stack up on the defensive line. And I promise you that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are still going to give you an average of 30 plus points a game on offense. I promise you that they're going to. It didn't make sense when they fired their defensive coordinator either. Like, he was the same guy that I would probably give the vast majority of the credit to during their Super Bowl run a couple of years ago, because Burrow was not a world beater during that run by any stretch of the imagination, and they let Lou walk. When you see that he has that kind of success, it tells you that their defensive issue for the past 2 years is exclusively a personnel issue. It was not a coordinator issue whatsoever.
No, I agree with that. I mean, they have personnel issues everywhere, and that's what's hard. It's like this is I also feel for the Bengals to a certain extent, not ownership. But imagine being their GM, right? And you're stuck between an owner that doesn't want to shell out cash and a quarterback who wants to build, frankly, a quarterback that wants to build the roster the wrong way. Like, this is a bass backwards way to build it. Joe, you need to be protected. We need to get after the quarterback on defense. By paying T. Higgins and Jamar Chase all this money, we're almost guaranteeing that even if we did that, this is going to be an impossible task for us to build the roster and complete it in that manner. Really, they should be trading one, if not both of those guys, to get all the capital that they can get and then build through the trenches, run the ball. I mean, look at how teams win. How many great receivers are in this league that didn't even make the playoffs or can't get past the first round? It's not a receiver driven league. And
No,
you
it's
want
not.
two of them? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And so you're looking also at 2 teams that made the AFC Championship this past year, did not have a single wide receiver that crossed 1,000 yards. Like, that's
Yeah.
half of the reason why, like, this whole thing, like, and this is a great segue too, because Bills fans have been talking about DK Metcalf. Like, they were just like, Dan, we need DK on this damn team. All right. And like, we're seeing that Seattle wants a first round pick and he would be calling for about $30 million per year. And I just think it's ass backwards. I'm like, okay, you're talking about an offense, all right, that was first and second in points per game, all right, with no big names whatsoever, no 1,000-yard wide receiver. We have a massive issue with getting to the quarterback in the first place, stopping third down conversions, and that's where you want to spend our limited cap space right now, is on another wide receiver. Why in the world will we do that? You're very familiar with DK Metcalf. And the
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks are asking, it appears to be for quite a pretty big haul. He's looking for like $30 million per year. I'm not sure about you. I don't want to call him overrated, but I don't think that he is as good as a first round pick and $30 million per year. I really don't. Like, I look at the wide receivers like Justin Jefferson, I look at Jamar Chase, and I think of like their career defining play. But then I look at DK Metcalf, and his career defining play was him chasing down a pick six. That should probably be something that should be a tall tale sign. That he's never been on a team where he was just the feature guy. You always had Lockett, solid guy out of the slot with JSN for the past couple of years. What's DK's value to you?
I mean, there's 0% chance I'd give up a first round pick for him. And I
Yeah.
think I think when I look at the market of wide receivers, 30 million AAV is about where he's going to come in. Again, it all comes down to structure, but that's probably about right. But I wouldn't want if I was a Buffalo Bill fan, I would not be clamoring to get DK Metcalf. I'm sorry. DK Metcalf, two things are true about him. I will
Yeah.
say it was clear when he came out of college. Remember, he was teammates with AJ Brown, that AJ Brown was the better player and was going to be the better player. That is true. I also think it's true that DK Metcalf has outperformed what my expectations were for him coming out of college. I think he's been a better all around route runner than what I expected. But now it's to a point where he's also underwhelmed, because once you saw that he could be a route runner, you're like, okay, that was the issue, was could you run crisp routes and run the whole route tree? The answer is kind of yes, but where is this freakish athleticism that gets you
Yeah.
the separation? Where is this mossing people that are smaller than you and slower? You don't see any of that on film. Like, that doesn't show up anywhere in his game. So the physicality that you expected to just be there is not there, but the route running that you didn't necessarily expect to be there is there. I don't know, man. I personally, I mean, certainly him and Allen would be fun to watch to a certain extent, but again, that's just not the way to build a roster. If I'm the Bills, I would say, go get a Hollywood Brown or, um,
That's what I
you
want.
know,
That's what I
maybe
want.
Godwin. Maybe you splurge on a Godwin if you can get
Yeah.
him for, around 20, something like that. But
Yeah.
no on DK. I'm not giving up assets and then paying him 30 million. There's no way.
So you're absolutely right about the physicality too, because like you would assume by his size that like he would be like one of his strengths would be those contested catches. Like what was it last year? Like he caught like 30% of his contested catches, and the year before it was like 27%. I feel like it's just a name. And so I feel like it's just people that play a little too much Madden and just want a Metcalf Bills jersey, like half of what it is. Like that's
Well, he looks the part though, right?
he
Like
does. Yeah, he
he
does.
looks the part. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were building a receiver in the lab, it would look like DK Metcalf.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
completely agree with that. But you can't he doesn't play to that level. Like that's not the type of player he is. And frequently he actually gets taken out of games mentally. I mean, that's the 49ers have done this over the last couple of years where they play him, they'll hit him an extra time, they'll talk a little bit of trash, and then he's completely mentally out of the game. It happened. Fred Warner gave him a late hit one time and was talking trash to him. That was it. He went crazy. He was mentally taken out of the game.
Oh,
Charvarius Ward did it to him. I mean, he's easy to take out of his game, and that just can't happen when you're supposed to be that guy at wide receiver.
so it was all head cases over in Seattle, apparently, because like one of your defenders said something about JSN on the internet or something like that. He goes, "Oh, I'm gonna miss DK." And so now all I need to deal with is JSN's bitch ass or something like that.
Yeah. Diamador Lenore, man, he's a bit of a talker. He's a
That's
fun one.
good. Hey, listen, you want that. You want that. But folks, short soft launch of the Dan Mitchell show this week. All right, we're going to be live again tomorrow. I'm going to see if I could roll in another contributor over at Roundtable Sports to talk a little ball. Sincerely appreciate you guys tuning in. I will get back to you about actual dates and times when the show is going to have its final slate ready to go. But hey, listen, man, I really appreciate you setting aside some time and talking with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me on, Dan. Good luck with your
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this episode. And we'll see you tomorrow for a little bit. Hopefully, we get some more NFL breaking news here within the next couple of hours. Peace, guys.